Appreciate you sticking around for this. I think it's going to be really, really interesting here. We've got two guys who represent two different prongs of the OTT sports industry, though as you'll see, there's a lot of interrelationship. So I'll let Martin and Zach, so with Martin, since you're closest to me, introduce themselves, a little bit about what they do, and then we'll get into a discussion.
Sure thing. My name's Martin Floriani. I'm the co-founder of Flow Sports. We're a direct-to-consumer, all-digital, aka over-the-top sports media company with a real focus on live events. We're based out of Austin, Texas. We have about 250 full-time employees, and we're in 22 verticals, also known as sports. A key component of what we do is we are very vertically based. Your traditional major broadcasters are an inch wide, a mile wide, and an inch deep. We take the exact opposite approach. We're an inch wide and a mile deep, and that's a core component of our model.
So my name is Zach Leonsis. I'm Vice President and General Manager of Monumental Sports Network. Our parent company, Monumental Sports Entertainment, we pride ourselves as being one of the fastest growing sports entertainment media companies in the country. We're better known for some of our team brands, the Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards. We have a WNBA team in the Mystics. We've launched 2 Arena Football League teams, the Washington Valor and the Baltimore Brigade. We announced last week that we're adding an NBA G League team, the minor league equivalent for the Wizards. We operate 2 minor league hockey teams underneath the Washington Capitals. We've recently made an investment in Esports into a team called Team Liquid. And in the fall, we launched a brand new partnership with Comcast and NBC Sports, which we're really excited about, which had Monumental Sports acquire an equity stake in the RSN there and secure long-term rights for the Capitals and Wizards, but also have NBC Sports invest in a sister network called Monumental Sports Network, to really start to create what is that next generation regional sports network that's direct to consumer, and a place where we can start to figure out where the puck is moving here and start to build a secondary subscriber base as well.
Okay, and I'm Alan Wolk. I am one of the principals of a consulting company called TV Rev. We also have a website of the same name where we have news about all the changes that are going on in the TV industry and how that overlaps with advertising and social media. Also have a book called Over the Top, How the Internet is Slowly but Surely Changing the Television Industry. It's used as a textbook at USC, UCLA, NYU, and it's available on Amazon. How's that for a little subtle plug? Anyway, so we're going to start off talking about what's going on with sports now, what's going on sort of with the existing players, and then how that works into OTT. So right now, I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, one of the things that's in the news all the time is, ESPN is shedding subscribers. The NFL, ratings were way down. What's going on? Do you think it's just is this just sort of a short-term blip? Or are people getting tired of this sort of big corporate sports enterprise? Martin, why don't you start off?
Yeah, I would say football wasn't ordained to be the greatest sport in the world. It was made that way, to the credit of the NFL and all the stakeholders within football. They did a great job of marketing, securing distribution, and becoming the sport entity that it is today. But it wasn't ordained that way. There's nothing inherently superior to football than other interests. And so over the last couple years, I'd say a handful of years, the technology has gotten there where you can stream, and you can stream pretty well, have a great quality experience. And so what's that? That's opening up the floodgates for all these other live events and these other passion points to get distribution. And so people are realizing, hey, I don't have to just eat what ESPN is feeding me. I can go out and watch whatever I really love. And so, that's been a trend that has been the rising tide to Flow Sports. We've been benefiting great off that trend. And then the second point is ESPN is in an innovator's dilemma, 100%. Even if they wanted to disrupt themselves, what I'm seeing is, first off, is they're not disrupting themselves enough to be around 10 to 15 years from now. But let's say they had the DNA. They said, you know what? We want to disrupt themselves. We want to disrupt ourselves. We're going to eat shit for 3 or 4 years, but we're going to be around 10 to 15 years from now. Let's say they had that DNA in place. I don't even know if they would be able to do it, because their parent company is Disney. Disney's stock would take a big hit. I don't know if they could be handcuffed in terms of Bob Iger saying, you know what, I can't make that play right now. So there's just a lot of problems with ESPN. So yeah, those two components have been a big boom for us, but I don't think it's something that's going to go away. If anything, it's going to start to amplify.
Right. What do you think, Zach?
So, I mean, clearly it's reflective of changing consumer behavior, and I think that, millennials and particularly Gen Z and the generation that will come after them, they won't know what a cable subscription is like. All new college dormitories being built throughout the United States are being built without coax cable outlets. They prefer Netflix or Spotify or Hulu and whatnot, and people are still yet to figure out, well, what is the sports bundle? What's the sports package that's the OTT equivalent for that? And obviously that's what we're trying to figure out. I think that in general, if you look at cable nationally versus locally, we really believe that local still matters. And the RSN subscriber bases have been decaying at a much slower rate than the national networks, which is another reason why we felt confident in doing our deal with Comcast and NBC Sports, premier partners in the space. But we together, at least we think and hope, did have the foresight to say, well, let's make a strategic investment here in building this OTT network. And Monumental, you have this base of content and programming outside of Capitals and Wizards games. You have a production team of nearly 40 people. It's a pretty big size group for a sports entertainment organization. And hey, let's experiment with the bundle. Let's see, what does it take to get into younger consumers' purchasing behavior? Is it just live video, or is it live video, original programming, and experiences? Is it experiences plus merchandise? And I think that not being confined by the affiliate deals of a cable package, we're able to really get to know our customer and really experiment with what our bundle offers.
Right. I mean, because that's really one of the big things is that when you go through ESPN, you don't get anything out of it. You don't get any data. You don't get any kind of, they own all that. And so the teams and the,
ESPN doesn't own it. Right. ESPN doesn't even own it.
Right. They own it. The MVPDs own whatever data they have. So they're sort of two levels removed.
Mm-hmm. And Nielsen's a tough system to deal with.
Yes.
It's not really data that we can get on a granular level from our platforms, right?
Right. It's age and gender.
Yep, and we talk about NFL ratings going down. I mean, the NFL is still an incredibly successful media business, but I don't think that all of these technologies are really tracking viewing across all of these devices. They're not accounting for people watching in a bar together, right? I mean, there's still things that aren't totally capturing viewership, at least in my opinion.
Right. So talking about the NFL and data, what do you all make of Amazon's deal with them? I mean, because, it's a very different kind of play than, say, Twitter or somebody else coming in, because Amazon's got, we always say Facebook knows who we want to be, but Amazon knows who we really are. And, what do you think they're going to do with that? Are they going to become a player in that, or is that just sort of a one-time, hey, let's do a promotion and get our name in the paper?
Well, when I think about our competitors in 5, 10, 15 years, I don't think about ESPN or any of the traditional broadcasters. I'm thinking about Amazon. I'm thinking about Facebook. I'm thinking about Google. I'm thinking about all those players. Why? Because those companies know how to use and drive their businesses from data. Right? They have a feedback loop of data, right? So ESPN sheds 100 personnel like a month or two ago, right?
Right.
How do they know that those people, they're just trying to shed the cost of content. They have no idea if those people, if maybe a quarter of those people should stay and 75% of them should go. They don't know if 75% of them should stay and a quarter of them should go. They don't have the feedback loops within their company to make the right decisions based off of data. So when I think about our future competitors, and I know this, we have our core business and what drives the economy around our core business.
Right.
Every department within Flow Sports is knowing what they're doing. We're measuring what they're doing and how that affects these core economies. But you think about ESPN or you think about the traditional broadcasters, they're disconnected about what they do and how that actually affects their core engine, which is their economic model.
Right.
And that's a really, really dangerous place to be, because ESPN could have cut 50 people of the 100 people they cut that were extremely valuable to driving their economic model, but they have no visibility into it.
The data portion that he's referencing is huge, and I think that is what excites so many of us about having a direct-to-consumer platform where you have, a customer profile and a credit card. I mean, that's really, those are metrics that matter. But I think that, the NFL going to Amazon shows just how big and powerful Amazon is, right? And the NFL said we need to make our games practically universally available. And Amazon has 70 million Prime subscribers or so. I mean, it's almost universally available, which is just amazing. I view some of those big players as complementary platforms to what we're doing at Monumental, and I think in some respects it could be complementary to you. They have such big user bases, and they can really amplify the content and production that we're producing and trying to distribute and attract customers and raise awareness of new sports. We just struck a deal between the AFL and Twitter to stream some of their games. The AFL.
What is the AFL?
The AFL is the Arena Football League.
Okay.
And so we're streaming some of those games on Twitter. And so you didn't even know about the AFL, and maybe I know you have a Twitter account.
Yes.
So maybe you'll see it next time. So I really view Twitter and Facebook as great complementary pieces to our media strategy.
Right. I mean, what's interesting, what we're seeing with Amazon, which is interesting, is that a lot of their strategy seems to be around merchandising. It's an incredible merchandising opportunity for anybody who goes in with them, which, you guys could technically also be a part of at some point, but, given Amazon's deep data, it's very easy for them to go, okay, Zach has watched the last 3 Redskins games. We're going to start putting Redskins jerseys onto his homepage every time he logs in. And on game day, we might even take 10% off just to see if he bites. And they're looking at Spotify and how that has sort of changed the music industry, right? Where it's sort of changed it from being album sales to merchandising sales and going, okay, this is a whole other revenue stream we can open up for sports because there's so much of this stuff going on. There's not a very straightforward funnel for it. They sell some things in stadiums, some things in Odell's, but it's one more thing Amazon can own. Another, just sort of changing gears now. Both of you, are involved in production at some point. So I wanted you to talk about what, a lot of times you'll hear, somebody try to do a live broadcast or something and it didn't work out and they're like, oh, the internet isn't ready yet. But is it really that the internet isn't ready or just people don't know, people sort of don't have the infrastructure? And what's involved in shooting live sports that makes it different from an infrastructure perspective than other broadcasts?
Yeah, I would say from over the last 4 or 5 years, what's happened in terms of distributing digitally has really transformed our space and made it so that has really made it a viable business model where before then it was a lot harder. When I think about, digitally, can digital handle the Super Bowl? No, not yet. That's a linear play. But when I think about the next 10 to 15 years, there's so much economy around digital, and there's so many big investments, whether it be from Amazon, Google, AT&T. They have so much interest in making digital work. I don't sit around thinking about, oh man, I hope the infrastructure is there in 10 years for digital to work. I think it'll take care of itself. It'll be able to one day handle the Super Bowl. Can it do it now? No.
Right.
But one day it will be.
I think when it does, it'll amplify the viewing experience in a way that linear doesn't today. There's a company out there called Kiswi that allows you to watch multiple camera angles all from one mobile phone interface, and you can tag different audio channels to each different video that you're watching, and bring in chat and bring in voting, and I think real-time gaming and fantasy could be further integrated into broadcast, and I mean that obviously is going to drive huge engagement. But I think one of the things that we've really found on our side is that digital allows you to experiment with more flexible, lightweight production opportunities. Where a major league broadcast could cost anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 a game.
Right.
We can do high school games or at 1 camera treatments, 3 camera treatments, 5 camera, 7 camera, 12 camera, all based on, the quality of play, predictions on viewership. And as we, launched 8 months ago, we've really started to collect a lot of data on what does that viewership look like, which will even help us further optimize the viewing experience for next year.
Right. Now, are you guys finding that most of your viewers are still watching on a traditional television set, or are they watching on mobile devices?
We see a lot of mobile, and I think it just comes down to what's most convenient for the user, what's most accessible at that time. If they're at work, it might be their desktop. If they're, at home in the bedroom, it might be their phone. It might be, if they're on the couch, it might be, through your traditional OTT or Roku, Apple device. Right. So I think it's just people consume what's most convenient for them. Right. At that time.
Same, predominantly mobile. We're available on 10 different platforms and applications. Laptop, I still think it's a bigger chunk than people expect, but definitely heavy mobile.
That's pretty interesting, because I mean, you wouldn't, if you would ask somebody, hey, could you see somebody holding their phone up for a 2-hour game? Which is probably not, but it seems that's happening.
Yeah, people are used to it. I can't explain the phenomenon other than I do it sometimes, right? I watch it for 2 hours on my mobile device, and it depends on where I'm at and how convenient, the Roku is. A television with
and
Roku
how much battery life you have left.
Yeah.
Always a pain.
Yeah. So you had brought up fantasy sports and things like that, which really sort of have taken on a life of their own, and then esports as well. I mean, is that really becoming like sort of a big, is that going to be sort of a challenge to traditional sports, or is it sort of its own beast, do you think? Like, is it, sort of people don't view it as, it may be called esports, but people sort of go, no, it's like a different thing. It just says sports in the name.
We're obviously big believers in esports. Team Liquid is a team that we are investors in with Peter Guber and Jeff Innick, and they operate across 9 different titles, and it's just different from what a lot of people are used to. I used to describe esports as the biggest thing that nobody had ever heard of. I don't think I can describe it that way anymore. I mean, the viewership numbers online are enormous, and they're a generation that is following new sports. And I was at E3 in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, and you talk to some fans and you go, oh, are you watching the NBA Finals? And they go, nope. No, I'm not interested. And we go, oh, do you know John Wall? Do you know Alex Ovechkin? And they go, nope, no, I don't. But I love Faker. Faker's an incredible League of Legends player, and that's who I want to watch. And so as a sports team operator, I think from our perspective, we really just have to be conscientious about, we better make sure we don't whiff on that next generation of fan. They're all viewing from OTT platforms. They don't have cable. Our teams are only distributed on cable. We got to bridge the gap. And these, regional sports network and national television deals are long-term in length. You don't want to whiff on an entire generation of fans.
Yeah, I'd add to that is the definition of sport has changed. It's really, for us, the way we look at sport is competition around live event, right? And we're focusing on the live event experience. 6 weeks prior to the event and 6 weeks after the live event and everything in between, right? And so when you the floodgates have opened up to all these other interests, and I think esports is on the bleeding edge of that, right? Esports is the biggest of those others,
right?
But you're going to start to see people be able to more follow and consume and identify with all these other passion points that they haven't been in the past, because they could only get what your traditional broadcasters were feeding them, and that was football, basketball, and baseball. And so there's just the floodgates have opened up, and so there's this massive opportunity, and that's where we've really identified is that long tail of just all these other passion points and going deep in each one of them.
Right, so I wanted to bring that up with you, because that's a really interesting thing that, we see this generational shift to begin with, where, like you guys were talking about Gen Z and younger millennials, less interested in, sort of the big four than previous generations. So you guys have gone into, sort of track and lacrosse and a whole bunch of different sports that traditionally don't get a lot of big media exposure. Now, how do you go about monetizing that? Like, is that, do advertisers view it as a niche audience, or do you have sort of broad enough base where they're able to go, hey, this is a great addition for, for us to reach out to this audience.
Yeah, so we've been able to use a hybrid model, subscription and advertising, which has worked great. And when I look into the future, it's going to remain that way. It's going to be subscription and advertising. And the reason is there's just a lot of power behind this thing called the live event. It's been going on for thousands of years. People come to compete, and it's this preordained time and place where history unfolds, right? And people are consumed by it. I don't know, it's part of our DNA. We just gravitate towards these live events. And for a sponsor to be a part of a live event, it's like they're almost putting on this history. And the amount of brand equity that they get is pretty powerful. And so from an economy of a live event, our job, Flow Sports' job, is to do two things.
Right.
Help event rights holders make more money and build them more media equity. And certainly the sponsorship is part of making them more money. And so we got to figure out a way to make it part of the package, and we have done so with great success to date, and we're looking at all kinds of innovative ways of taking it forward.
So we're an S5 business. We also have an ad-based business with a free layer. So we'll distribute a lot of that programming via social just to get big scale and the like. But I think that's the case for a lot of sports. Esports, I'm not sure if that will ever live behind a paywall. Right. And what we have to experiment with and figure out is, are there freemium models? Are there add-ons that are valuable? The digital item, real-time trading that happens across these titles is tremendous. I'd encourage you guys to Google and read a little bit about it, because there's these huge online economies happening. But we've also tried to bundle in these in real life experiences, and so if you were a subscriber to our network in December, you got access to a happy hour event with Otto Porter Jr. That's a pretty unique OTT bundle, right? You can actually watch Wizards original programming, you can watch a bunch of basketball games, and then you can actually meet Otto and do something cool like a mixology class. So that's what we're trying to figure out is what are the trigger points that make people subscribe. Live events is the obvious one, and that definitely drives subs. What is the ancillary benefits? What are the ancillary product categories that really drive interest and engagement?
Right, so how much promotion do you guys need to do? Like you're talking about, you promote it on social. I mean, do you have to do a lot of advertising for it, or is it just within the communities themselves they're aware of these events and they're aware, just almost like a word of mouth thing at this point? Or do you really need to do some heavy promotion around the events?
Yeah, so a key component of our success is the marketing aspect. And I would group within marketing content creation, right? So although they lie in two different departments within our entity, I really look at them as one element to really build that media equity, that relevancy for that particular event.
Right.
And so we're telling those storylines through all the different social channels and creating content to make sure to really communicate those storylines. So yes, marketing is a big aspect to it. Otherwise, these events can just happen in a vacuum.
Right.
Right? If people don't understand why they're important and their implications, they could just show up and just happen to if you watch an event on ESPN 360 or whatever their online plays, you'll just see an event pop up. You don't really understand why. You don't have necessarily announcers, and it's there and it's gone. It's happening in a vacuum, right? So you got to really explain why the implications of what's happening around the event, do the storytelling, do the marketing, and you've got to focus on that. And the hard part about that is the tactics and the methods that are working today aren't going to work 12 months. They're constantly evolving. So it's not like, check, got that in place. No. There's all kinds of tactics and different ways to use those different platforms, and those are constantly evolving, and you better stay with it, otherwise you'll fall behind.
Right. Different sports have different communities, audiences react differently and live on different platforms and the like. So we have a pretty diverse marketing mix. We do a little paid. We actually do a fair amount of grassroots marketing, particularly with our local high school sports and the like, getting into gyms, letting people know. But then, we try to take advantage of the fact that we already have a big digital social presence before we even launched, with big team social followings and the like. And so, it's a mixture of creating the live event programming, but then also tune-in programming, pregame programming that's highly distributed, that raises awareness, drives appointment viewing. It's sort of a full team effort to drive awareness around some of these smaller niche events, if you will.
Right. Now, what about the athletes themselves? Like, the NBA's done a really good job of sort of letting their guys go out there, and they've got a lot of people on social media talking about it, and it's, and a lot of people sort of feel like, okay, that's really contributed to their success versus some of the other leagues which are much more conservative about what they let people do. Do you guys tap into your athletes to help promote these things, and are they up for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll find them, they're very passionate about promoting it and getting the word out, which has been great for us. So yeah, we find our athletes are very active on it, and we encourage them to be.
I mean, our athletes are inundated with requests, so sometimes it can be difficult, I won't lie to you. But we partner with a company called Greenfly, which actually allows us to create a lot of UGC in a way that's easier for players. And, we try to utilize our on-air talent and the like, our coaches.
Right.
There are varying degrees of accessibility there, and still really great ways to get, quote unquote hot takes or things right after a game, or, how someone's feeling before a game. Definitely amplifies the live game experience and drives awareness and tune-in as well.
Right. Now, do you guys find, because I know, especially with the with this sort of smaller sports, whether it's high school or some of the or some of the niche sports that you're involved with, you see the difference, say, between YouTube celebrities and TV stars is that people sort of feel like, hey, I know this person. Like, they're so accessible, they actually kind of know who they are. I know who Michelle Phan is, I might not, whereas, Katy Perry is just, out there in the universe. Do you sort of find that some of the fans start to develop those kind of relationships, via social with some of your stars, or is there still sort of a gap there?
Yeah, it's funny. We have inside the company subject matter experts, SMEs, that we define in each of the verticals. And as they become active on social and do all those things, whether it's podcasts, people will come up to them at events and they'll want their autograph. They want to take pictures with them. They'll be standing next to like a world champion over here, right? So this guy, yes, absolutely. That component definitely happens.
I think authenticity is really important to this. Authenticity, relatability. Some of our, I think, most popular pieces of on-demand programming have been produced by a wonderful 22-year-old producer we have on the team. And she takes some pretty incredible ideas from, various news and publication sites that she likes to read and watch. And the times that we've produced those, it's really, resonated with the audience, if you will.
That's great. That's great. So I wanted to talk also about sort of the in-stadium or the at-event crowd versus, and streaming it and how that all plays out. So for a long time, as you know, the leagues put blackouts on games that were happening locally because they were afraid, if it's broadcast on TV, people will just sit home and not show up. But that seems to not really be the case as much anymore. In terms of people, in terms of people not showing up, they still have the blackouts. So, how do you think OTT is going to evolve with that? And then also, as a sort of second part to that, what can you do at the event to make it special for the people who are there, so that they can say, hey, I'm really glad I went because I got to do X.
Yeah, I look forward to Zach's response in the second half, but I will say on the first half, I don't know if it was a good strategy back then, but it certainly isn't a good strategy now to do blackouts. As a media partner to the event, our objective is to amplify that event, right? And that's amplify wherever people care about that event. So if you went and did a blackout, let's say we were to distribute an event here in New York City, and the event rights holder said, hey, you know what? I want to black out New York City. and you can have the rest of the world, but we want to black out New York City because people will come. Well, then, our marketing efforts aren't necessarily aligned with the event rights holder. We want to market to everyone that cares about that event, and we're going to be doing storytelling the 6 weeks prior to that event to build up that event. And that storytelling's going to grab the interest of people in New York City, right? And we'll be promoting to specific targeted regions. If you're telling us now, hey, we're going to be blacking out New York City, now all of a sudden our interests aren't to promote in New York City. And so a big key component to our success is aligning our interests with the event rights holders. We want to be the best partner we can be. And so blacking out a region doesn't align interests, and it doesn't serve anyone's benefit.
Right. Could you just give me an example of some of and for the audience, some of the tactics that you use when you're saying 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after to sort of, excite people? Are you doing social media posts?
Yeah, so we'll do short films.
Okay.
Right? We'll say, hey, there's some matchups going to be happening. For example, World Team Trials happened in wrestling a week ago. So we'll do a short film about what we consider to be the major two matchups. And we'll explain why these are the major matchups. And then we'll do a hype video. Then we'll do all these articles on, the last time these two champions face off, what has been the result, why it's going to be different this time. And we'll do all types of other type of artistic elements around that, whether that be GIFs that we're posting on social, of key moments that happened in previous matches. So we're building all of these different storylines, right? And our subject matter experts are focused in on executing those storylines the 6 weeks prior to really be building the interest and building that media equity, the relevancy of the World Team Trials.
Right. So you are using social though to drive.
Oh yeah,
drive this. Okay.
Absolutely. A key component of our marketing is our social. Facebook's done actually a couple of case studies on what we do and how we do it because they found them unique, and it's been a part of our success.
Okay,
I think it's been a while since local teams have blacked out games purely because they said, it's got to be a sellout before people can watch. I agree, you want an amplifying effect. We've been very fortunate that the Capitals have been sold out for the past 13 seasons. The Wizards are not quite sold out, but are getting much closer, particularly after a nice playoff run with the team this year. But I do get a lot of questions about, are you afraid of people stopping coming to games or whatnot? And my answer, to be frank, is no, not yet at least. I really think that sports is a religion almost, and the arena is like your church. You got to come and see the team, and that community approach is pretty remarkable. I mean, we have season ticket holders who have been coming to games for over a decade, and they've been sitting next to the same person for over a decade, and they've built friendships and bonds, and they've ridden the good times and the bad times with each other, and those are really, really hard to break, and that's an experience that's really, really hard to replace. And so we can work hard to, improve our F&B opportunities around the building, food and beverage.
Okay.
We can work to make greater hospitality areas. We can do innovative things on the concourse level, like we have a VR goalie experience where you can be Braden Holtby taking shots from Alex Ovechkin, which is slightly terrifying the first time you try it.
Right.
But we do a lot to try to improve the arena experience, but I really think that's a really difficult event to replicate anywhere else.
Right. Now you were talking too about, because we were talking in the previous, just before, about, is there anything digital that the teams can do at the stadium? And you're saying they still have the arenas still struggle with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, connectivity is clearly the big issue, and there have been several stadiums and arenas that have been built that have said, we've solved it, and I think quirks and bugs are still being found about a lot of these things. I mean, fitting that many people into that small of a space, there just isn't enough spectrum.
Right.
And that is definitely, I think, the biggest obstacle. And I mean, we've been pitched really, really big projects, and just not sure if they're going to work. A lot of expense for very little return, at least right now, the way that the hardware is designed right now.
Okay, good. Well, I could not have asked for better timing. It's 5 minutes to go exactly, so we're going to open it up for questions. So I believe that there are mics at somewhere, one of your people there, and I see this gentleman right here in the bluish shirt, and
Hey, thanks so much, guys. So my question is specifically for Martin. So as a network that's coming out with what a lot of people would consider alternative content over alternative mediums, when you're talking to a big national, maybe international advertiser, what do you think is the most compelling ad product that you have off the shelf that you can deliver scale and really a compelling story around for those big brands?
So we'll do tens of thousands of competitions in 2017. And like I was saying earlier, the sponsorship around those events, to me, is unduplicated. And because we're doing so many, they can hit a demo that works for them, the demo that they're trying to get. But not only that, they're connecting with people. A lot of times in what you said, an alternative product is virgin territory. It's not like these events have had professional advertisers around this content for a long time. This is virgin territory, and because we're doing tens of thousands of these competitions, they can hit whatever demo they want. And once we put sponsorship around that, they get to really tap into what these. When people come and consume this content, it's their passion. Like he said, it's their religion. They love it. They have such an identity with it. And so when a sponsor's around their religion, it's like they're putting on that history. And that brand equity is really, really powerful. And that's why you see the NFL, they have done great things. MLB, all these guys, all these major rights holders have done incredibly well on sponsorship. But there's this whole tier of, I would call it lower upper tier and upper middle tier events that haven't had that opportunity. And so when a sponsor comes to us, they get to tap into a really potent audience.
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
This
go
is a question for Zach. How would you compare traditional sports to esports and in-stadium experiences?
It's interesting. I think that the only esport right now today that's had big audiences has been League of Legends, and those really accumulate around kind of a Super Bowl equivalent like events like the LCS, and Counter-Strike Go has a big following. Dota 2 has a really big following as well. I think that esport events right now, they're probably best suited as national conventions with a lot of people coming in, and they're places where people bring their consoles and their PCs themselves, and they want to play against other gamers too. I think that eventually we could see a format where competition is happening on a more frequent basis, maybe from a regionalized approach. The NBA is partnering with Take-Two Interactive to launch the 2K League. The Wizards We Were a Hand Raiser will have a 2K team, and obviously those will be taking regionalized approaches. So that's a slightly different variance, but that's still a part of esports that needs to be developed. And I think that's why it's such an exciting time to be involved and have a seat at the table and figure that out, frankly. I think that's where a lot of publishers want to take this, and it's sort of a matter of time before they figure out what that regionalized or more frequent event opportunity looks like.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and thank you both. You're awesome.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.